So today, we're going to talk about a building. But look, this isn't just about architecture. This is really the story of a five-sided character that has totally shaped history, a place where the hallways just echo with decisions that have reached every single corner of the globe. We're going to do a biography of the Pentagon. So let's just start with the big question that really frames everything we're about to get into. Can a single building, a structure of concrete and steel, can it actually change the destiny of millions? Can its corridors really house decisions that ripple out for generations to come? Well, let's dive in and find out. All right, so our story kicks off in a moment of absolute global crisis. The birth of this giant wasn't some long, drawn-out peacetime project. No way. This was an act of pure wartime urgency. Okay, so picture this. It's 1941, the world is at war, and the US War Department has a huge logistics problem. Its 24,000 people were spread out across 17 different buildings all over Washington, D.C. It was a nightmare trying to coordinate anything efficiently. So the idea was simple, but it was massive. Bring everyone under one single roof to create a real centralized command center. And what's absolutely nuts is the speed they built it with. They broke ground on September 11th, 1941. Now, a project like this should have taken years, but it was finished in just 16 months. I mean, that just shows you the urgency of the time, and frankly, the sheer industrial power America was starting to unleash. And the cost? $83 million. In today's money, that's well over $1 billion. It was just an astronomical sum that basically signaled the scale of America's commitment to its new, unavoidable role on the world stage. So what they built was, and still is, basically a city in itself. You've got 5 floors above ground, 2 below. Thousands of people worked around the clock day and night to get it done. And here's a cool fact. Because steel was so precious for the war effort, they relied heavily on reinforced concrete that they literally dredged up from the nearby Potomac River. The result? This massive, self-contained world designed for one single purpose: to run a global war. Okay, so the building is up. Now let's talk about what happened inside it, because the Pentagon very quickly became the nerve center for all of American military power, and its rooms, well, they became the stages for decisions that would define the next 100 years. This right here really gets at a core tension inside the building's philosophy. Back in the 1960s, you had Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara and his team of whiz kids. And they kind of approached war like it was a math problem. The strategy was all data-driven, analytical. We're talking body counts and spreadsheets. But the reality on the ground, of course, was one of profound human consequences. And that disconnect would end up haunting the building's legacy for decades. For decades, the Pentagon was the absolute epicenter of the Cold War. It's where they planned for the unthinkable in all sorts of nuclear scenarios. It's where, years later, guys like Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney would shape modern conflicts. But it wasn't all happening behind closed doors. As this incredibly powerful public symbol, its very steps became a stage for protest, where American citizens challenged the decisions being made just inside its walls. For 60 years, the Pentagon stood as this untouchable symbol of American strength. And then came a day that changed literally everything. A day its defenses were breached, not from some far-off enemy, but from the clear sky right above it. It was a beautiful, clear morning on September 11th, 2001. Inside the Pentagon, it was just the start of a normal workday. But at 9:37 a.m., a hijacked passenger jet was deliberately flown straight into the building's western face. The impact and the fire fed by all that jet fuel caused a huge section of the structure to just collapse. The human cost, it was just devastating. In total, 184 lives were lost in the attack on the Pentagon. That number includes 125 people who were just at work inside the building, military personnel and civilians, and all 59 passengers and crew aboard that flight. Just a staggering loss in a place that was supposed to be a fortress. But in the wake of all that destruction, an incredible story of resilience began to take shape. The effort to rebuild, it wasn't just about concrete and steel. It was about reclaiming a national symbol from the ashes. So the name they gave the rebuilding effort was very deliberate and really symbolic. They called it Project Phoenix. And that message was so intentional and powerful, it was a signal to the nation and to the entire world that, just like the mythological bird, this institution was going to rise right back up from its own ashes. But, symbolism only goes so far. It couldn't erase the human reality of what was lost. And that feeling was just perfectly captured by one of the Reconstruction workers who helped rebuild the physical structure, but completely understood its limits. And that really brings us to the most important part of this building's whole story, the personal stories. Because for every big decision, for every major historical event, there's always an enduring human echo that follows. Listen to this from a technician who was inside the building that day. He described those surreal moments right after impact, where your first instinct is survival, but that's immediately followed by this overwhelming need to find your friend in the middle of all that chaos. And the impact? Well, it just rippled outward, touching families hundreds of miles away. The story wasn't just in the smoke rising over Arlington, it was in the silence on a phone line, as a mother in a completely different city heard the news from her son. For so many people, the world changed in that single moment. Today, the Pentagon stands fully repaired. The offices are busy, the corridors are full again. But this leaves us with a final question. Does rebuilding a physical structure, no matter how symbolic it is, does it ever truly heal the historical and the human wound? It's really something to think about.